In the beginning times, they say that Iktomi, which means spider. Well, he was no spider, he was a man. And he was, in the early days, not a good-looking man. In the early days, he had been given a plain face. Nothing special, nothing unpleasant, very plain. But behind his face was a very good mind. And he used that good mind to solve problems. He used that good mind to listen. And when the old people spoke to him, he would listen very well. He could hear, he could remember, and then he could speak and say exactly what he had been told. And he would share the gifts of the old with the young who gathered before him. And so he stood in that perfect place between the very old and the very young. It's like a tree with branches into the future of the sky and roots deep into the past. There's a good position. But one day, as Iktomi was standing there speaking to the young ones, he noticed across the camp circle something he had never noticed before. There was a teepee that had gone up, and it was the most garishly over-decorated teepee he'd ever seen in his life. There was not a surface on it that wasn't colored with some brightly colored paints. Stepping out of that teepee was a man wearing the most brilliant clothes that sparkled in the sunlight. And this man had the most beautiful face Iktomi had ever seen. So much so, for a second he was distracted from the story he was telling. The next thing he saw was totally strange, for all the young women in the village started running toward that man, in their arms carrying gifts of clothing, jewelry, fine food, sweet oils, eagle feathers, furs, and pelts. They clustered around that man, and as Iktomi watched, still telling stories to the young ones, he saw that man disappear in and out of his lodge, putting on more clothes and more jewelry, wrapping his hair and furs, tying feathers in his hair. The women were close around him, oiling his hair, fanning him with eagle wings, and laughing at everything he said. Well, this was so strange that Iktomi was curious, and as soon as he was finished that day, he went across the camp circle, he approached that man, and he asked him, "Why do the women treat you this way?" And that man looked at him and said, "Huh? Don't I look good today?" And Iktomi said, "Well, yes, you do, cousin, but that was not my question. I was wondering, why are all the young women, all of these young women, they are unmarried and they bring you gifts. They are laughing at what you are saying. What are you saying to them, cousin?" And the man said, "Huh? Don't I look good today?" "Ah," said Iktomi. "I don't think you are going to be able to answer my question. I think I must spend a day behind that face to understand what it is you're trying to tell me." So he suggested a trade. He offered to take that man's face for one day. "What will you give me for my face?" "I'll give you my mind," said Iktomi. "Huh? What will I do with that?" "You'll understand when you have one." Well, this was long ago, and these things were possible, so that trade was made. Iktomi went home, went to sleep, woke up the next morning with no mind at all and no memory of what had happened. He stepped outside his lodge, and all the young women, not yet married, in that village came running toward him now, carrying these gifts. "Why are you dressed like this?" they cried. "Put this on. Let me oil your hair. Ito, ito." And they laughed at everything he said. They fanned him with wings of eagles. They pressed sweet food to his lips. He liked it. He liked it so much that he did that all that day and into the evening until he was exhausted. So much jewelry hung from his body. He went into his bed. He fell asleep. He woke the next morning. Around him he saw beautiful things in every direction. No idea where they'd come from. He stepped outside of his lodge. Women started coming at him again. "Why are you wearing that again today? Oh, put this on. Let me see this on you." And they dressed him and they oiled his hair. Oh, it was so good. It went on for 4 days. But on the 4th day, as these women were feeding him, he looked across the camp circle and he saw a man with a plain face. Behind him stood half a circle of old people, and before him stretched the rest of a circle of young faces looking up in pure delight. Iktomi knew that man had something that belonged to him, though he had no idea what. He went across the camp circle and he said, "Give it back! You had something of mine, now give it back." And that man said, "I have your mind. I want it, whatever that is. Give it back to me." And that man said, "No, cousin. Our trade was for one day. 4 days have passed. Now your mind, well, it is mine. You keep that good face. In many years to come, no one will feed you to look at it, but they will still come to me for what is in my mind." And so it was. Iktomi became the foolish one and truly earned the name of Spider, for he only feels smart when he spins his webs out, playing tricks on others, trapping them and making them look foolish. Then he feels good. And so poor Iktomi makes mistake after mistake, a lesson always to be learned, but he sleeps. And since he has no mind, he forgets.